Let's take a look at how we control the money that comes in to your property in a way of making sure we maximize our income. Now, most of the managing agent controls over cash receipts are quite reasonable, so we're going to be looking to try to enhance them to get to best practices. Best practices is what we would hope would be the best possible controls that could exist. And since their controls are reasonable, we're talking about adding some building-specific controls. These would normally be established by one or several board members, basically to personalize the situation and to make things better. But realize they may be lost with a change of the board or the property manager, and in order to make sure that doesn't happen, they should be memorialized in some format, either written policies and procedures or some other kind of documentation. As far as building staff, make sure that the building is maintained properly and things are done when they're supposed to. Maintenance schedules and checklists are important, but those also need to be verified. We're trying to get to the point where we maximize the revenue and we also enhance the living conditions of the people living in the building. So one of the most important things to do is to use a lockbox. If your managing agent is not using a lockbox, you should really get to the bottom of why and make sure. A lockbox errs on the side of accepting money as opposed to taking a chance that your money doesn't get into your bank account. All the money for you goes into your bank account. It goes there first, we figure out the accounting stuff later. Now, some buildings will allow the drop-off of checks at the property manager's office or at the building office. And we understand that there's a need for this for the convenience of the unit owners. But many times there's a breakdown of internal controls and the segregation of duties in that those checks end up in the wrong hands. They're in the same people who violate that. So we really want to make sure that that money gets to the lockbox by individuals other than the ones who normally record the payments. If your property has the same charges, that many units have the same maintenance or common charges, this happens a lot of times in garden apartment complexes, you want to verify that there's no risk of improperly applying a payment to the wrong unit. Since the amounts are the same, it could easily be lost, and it's very much a concern for these types of entities. It's not as obvious as it is in other entities because the amounts vary so much. Now, when we take a look at cash receipts at our property management firms, we find some issues that are important. So we want to try to make sure that the data or the lockbox is documented from the financial institution. That generally happens in the form of a download. So that's the best control possible, is that the information feeds right into the system. We also want to make sure that a person who can make adjustments to people's accounts isn't the one that also has other duties for deposits. We want to make sure that those segregation of duties works. And also, account changes should be made by somebody who doesn't have other duties of recording cash receipts. This is one that we sometimes find is that the person is doing a number of things, and if they can write off, it's a potential issue for internal controls. We want to maximize the revenue. So do you know the controls that are in place for the miscellaneous income in your building? Because miscellaneous items are things that sometimes are easily lost, end up in the wrong place. So we've had horror stories of this being misappropriated within the industry, the cash receipts for one building going to another because nobody would have noticed because it's miscellaneous. So it's really important that there be a good monitoring function on things that are miscellaneous. So things that you should check are lists of the participating unit owners to the accounting systems to make sure everybody's there. Verify unit sales, that any checks that are for transfer fees or other items at closing happen. Get a list of the potential number of parking spaces or storage lockers and verify that there are no missed vacancies. There's a very big concern there about the potential of that somebody leaves and a unit gets left as unbilled. All application forms for things that are like parking spaces and whatever should be pre-numbered and accounted for. Really important one to make sure we get everybody, that somebody ends up not being outside the scope and we can verify item goes. Also, tenant adjustment forms, when something needs to be written off, should be pre-numbered and also verified to make sure that we're maximizing our outside income, our miscellaneous income. We want to try to make sure that we collect every dollar we're entitled to in the base form, as well as all those other non-recurring items. Every dollar that's extra that we find is the same as minimizing a cost and reducing a cost going forward.